So I'm recording this now. So this is something that tomorrow, when you guys actually take the quiz, if you have questions or if there are things that come up, you're like, gosh, how do we do this? How does this get worked? This is something that you can go back and watch this video tomorrow. And you can even go one question at a time and say, no, wait a minute. Mr. Bechtel went through question one. I have a question. Let's see what we did. And you can go back and watch the video. You can rewind to it and see what's happening and say, oh, that's what he means. That's what's happening. Okay. So that's why we're putting these up here. Now, with this one, question one, it's I can factor out a monomial. So the idea is that I've got this expression and I need to factor out something that those two things have in common. So we're going to use this box over here and I'm going to type because I think that my writing is fine. And if you know, guys, if you want to write, like you can go in here and like if you want to write the 9 and you want to write the X, all of that's fine. But I do know that a lot of times you guys probably prefer when I type because I know that it's a little bit easier to see. So if I have 9x raised to the second power here and I've got minus 12x, I am putting these two things in here because if I'm factoring, then that means that this is what I got after multiplying. And I need to think about what do I do to get this to the point of multiplying here. So when I factor, I'm seeing what do they both have in common that I can factor out or divide out, and then what is left is what's going to be on the top. So here's the way that I try to think about this first. I'm going to move this, and let's look at our variables first. So I've got here I have an x to the second power, and here I have just an x. So what I know is that these do both have a variable. So since they both have a variable, what that means that I'm going to be able to do is that means I can divide that out to the outside. So I'm going to put this on the side here. I know there's going to be an x, and I know how much you guys love it when I write these here. So what I have to think about is since they both have an x, if I have this here, what happens when I divide that out? And so for this one, I've got an x raised to the second power. So if there were 2 and I had an x here, I have to also have an x up here to make that x to the second power. Here I only had 1. So if I take that out here, there's not going to be anything there that comes out. Okay, so now I have to look at the numbers. I've got to look at this number 9, and I got to look at this number negative 12. So let me ask, do you guys know off your head, is there a number you can think of that multiplies to 9 that also multiplies to 12? Because that might be helpful for us. Stephen says 3x, and that is something, we've already got the x there, so you're saying the 3. The 3 definitely multiplies to the 9, and the 3 also multiplies to the 12. If I had this list here, the 9 would be 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. And then if I did that same list with the 12 would be 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. And so in this case, what we have in common there is indeed, oops, that's not what I need. What we have in common there is indeed that 3. That is the biggest thing that I can take out. And so if I take a 3 out, well, that means then that I have to see what would be left behind. So 9 divided by that 3, well, this is paired with a 3. So that would be a 3x left for this one. And then that for the 12, if I take the 3 out, I have a 4 that's left. I can't forget that negative sign. So this is going to be the minus and the 4. And that then takes care of what I can take out from here. So here I have factored out this 3x. What's left behind is this 3x minus 4. I have to write this over on the side, though, to make sure that I can see it. So when I do this, that 3x is on the outside of parentheses. And I write parentheses, and then what I have right here, that goes on the inside, the 3x minus 4. And that is the result of what I'm going to be getting for this one. So that's what we do for a problem like this. I'd like for you guys to go in and make sure that you can do this as well. So let me see, have any of you guys gone to type it? There's the scary ghost. Many of you guys have also written the things that we have here. And that's kind of what I'm looking at, is I just want to see what you guys have. the more that you could type and write in here, the better off we are going to be. So this is good practice for you in terms of what you have to do. I am going to stop the pacing so you guys can move to different things as well. But do make sure that as you go through here, you get a chance to kind of write what we're going to do. We'll go through the next ones in a minute. Looking at our time, we've got about 15 minutes left in class, which gives us about 5 minutes per slide. So I want to make sure you guys can write this, but I also want to ask, if I go back to that, does anybody have any questions about where anything came from on here so that I can answer this, okay? And I'll take just a minute. Any questions at all? Okay, Stephen, no questions. It's fair enough. So when you get done with this one, if you guys would move to question 2 to slide 3, we're going to go through that in just a minute. This should be fine. I apologize. I'm eating a little bit of a snack here. And it's a Tootsie Roll, which is great, except for the fact that they stick in your teeth, and I didn't think about that. So I put it in, I'm like, this is a terrible idea. What have I done? Okay, that should be fine. I should be able to talk through the rest of it. All right, let's go. Let's go to this slide, and I'm going to ask you guys something really quickly. For a moment, before we start doing any work with this one, is it my favorite candy? It is not, but I will get to my favorite candy in a minute. I want to talk about this page first, because Stephen, I want to get off track as well. What I want to do here, we're going to be factoring this using the box and the X. It has been a little bit since we've done this. It's been since last week. I want to come back and do this, but what I want to do first, I want to go to this 4th slide to question 3 about multiplying the binomials, because I think if we can start here, it might be easier for us to go back and understand what we have to do with the other one, okay? My favorite candy, honestly, if I could just eat it forever, would probably be, I really like Sour Patch Kids. I don't know. There's something about them. I like the sourness. I like the fruitiness. I like the gummy. Those are really good. So if I had to like pick the snack that I would eat forever, like if I'm driving anywhere, I would want a bag like this big where I could just keep eating those the entire time I'm driving. That's actually here. You want to see something crazy? So I'm going to be gone on Friday of this week because I'm going on a trip where I do have to drive someplace. I have in front of me, because I'm at my table, here's my bag of car snacks for my wife and I. This is just things that we can eat. And if you notice, it's right there, the Sour Patch Kids. So I did not purchase these. This is actually, she purchased them and put a bunch of stuff in bags because I'm not organized enough for that. Oh, I like the Sour Airheads too. Those are really good. So my favorite, stop it, Stephen. You're getting me off track. Let's do this math first, and then I'll answer about my favorite chips. And thank you very much for asking. Okay, so what we're going to do, when it says to multiply, we're going from the outside and multiplying in. When it says to factor, we're filling in the inside and working our way out. So let's start with outside in, and then we'll go inside out. So with this, whenever we multiply something, what we're going to do is to take these parentheses, and we're going to be labeling our sides here. Now, I am going to type because I think it's going to be easier to see. So I'm going to put my 3x here. I'm going to put the plus 2 here. So I've got this side is this parentheses. Then up on the top, I'm going to have 2x. And here, I'm going to have minus 5. And so now what we're going to be doing is inside here, we're going to have to be combining or multiplying these things together to get our results. And so that's kind of the way this is going to work. Now I'm going to change my color for my results in here. We can sort of talk about them one at a time. So here for this one, we are taking the 3x, we're multiplying by the 2x. So first we multiply the numbers. 3 times 2 is going to be 6. And then x times x is going to give me x to the second power, or x squared. So that takes care of this one. And if I go in here, I am taking this 3x, this side, that negative 5 is here. So I am multiplying 3x times negative 5. Again, it's always you do your numbers times your numbers, your variables and your variables. So 3 times negative 5 will give me negative 15. X times, well, there isn't an x here. It means I just put the x right there. So this is negative 15x. Now for this one down here, we're just filling in all 4. So on this one, this side is a positive 2. This side is a 2x. So number times number, 2 times 2 is 4. Nothing here times the x means I have to include the x here. Okay. And then for this last corner here, I'm going to be taking this 2 and this negative 5. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And there are no variables on this one. So that takes care of sort of what we're going to need to do. Now, what I have to think about then is with these 4 answers, what can I put together? And if I look, this is an x squared. It's the only one of those. This is an x. I have another one of those. So these 2 right here, that negative 15x here. Whoop, man, let me back that up a minute. That's terrible. Let's actually circle that. Negative 15x there and the 4x here. These are our like terms. So I can put those together. And then this negative 10, there's nothing else. Okay. So here, I'm going to type in, well, here I've got the 6x squared. So 6x squared, because that doesn't combine with anything. Now I've got the negative 15x plus the 4x. If I add negative 15 and 4, I'm going to get negative 11x. And then here I've got this minus 10. So I'm going to put that at the bottom. This is my answer for all of these things put together. And I'd hit a submit. That's how we do this specific problem, by multiplying them together. Now, I'm going to check and see how you guys have done, but does anybody have any questions about where I got my answer or what I did? Because there is another way we can write it. I just wanted to make sure you guys are okay with this. I'm going to go back into the response just to show you. If you do want to write it as the exponent, if you click this little guy here and hit the type math, you can write it this way. So we can do 6x, and you can do the little squared button, minus 11x minus 10. It's all the same way. And so that if you want to do that, you can do both. It doesn't matter to me. I'm happy with either thing, but it is a way of doing it if you would like to. Let me look at the teacher thing just to see. A couple people have typed, which is really good. And so I'd love to see you guys go in and do some more of this. We have, looking at this, we've got 8 minutes left for the last 2. I do want to make sure, I can tell you this one is going to take the longest, the factoring this, working our way in. So I want to make sure you have a chance of doing that. This one we should be able to do pretty quickly. So why don't I just do this last one really swiftly? Let's just do slide 4 or slide 5, question 4 really quick. With our first one, we worked from the inside out because it said factor. Multiplying means you go from the outside in. This should be super quick. We're taking that 4x, writing it here on the side. The 5x minus 3 is going to go up here on the top. There's 5x. There's minus 3. And essentially, we're taking what we did with that last problem and just doing it, instead of doing it with 4, we're just doing it with 2. So that means inside here, well, 5 times 4 is 20. X times x is x raised to the second power. And then for this one over here, I've got the 4x and the 3. So 4 times that negative 3 is going to give me negative 12. And x times nothing is just going to give me an x. These aren't like terms, so this is all I can do. And I can just write that here, 20 x to the second power minus 12x. Now, I did this one quickly because I know that with something like this, it's not as involved. And this is just something where you're putting 2 numbers here and multiplying them together. If you're not 100% sure, that's why this is on here for you guys to watch. But I would also say to you that writing whatever you know on here is going to be something that will help me determine what it is that you do know about this, that it'll sort of be helpful for me to be able to give you guys some guidance as well. Okay, guys, we're going to the last one here, the factoring the quadratic trinomial. So this is factoring this. We're using the box and the x as we go through and do it. So this is something that we've spent a lot of time with, but it's also been something about remembering sort of where things are supposed to go. So what I want you to remember is that all 3 of these terms have a place for us to put them, okay? That x squared term, that always, like the first term here always goes in this corner. The last term here always goes in this corner. Because when we multiply them, those are the ones that don't have to combine any like terms. So whatever we had here and here, those are always going to be in this corner and that corner. So here I've got an x squared, whoop, and here I've got a 12. I did tell you guys I was going to type. I don't know why I'm actually writing here, but that's sort of the way I'm going. And then we have the 7x here. Now that's something that we had to combine whatever these two things are to get there. So I'm going to put that down here on the bottom because I know that these two have to add to get to that. So this is going to be a 7 and an x right here at the bottom of my x, at the bottom of my diamond over here. Now, we got to figure out what these two things are going to multiply to. And the way that we do that is we take these two terms here, the 12 and the x squared, and we multiply them together to see what we're going to have on the top. So if I was going to take x to the second power and I was going to multiply that by 12, what I would get for this top part right here would be a 12x squared. Here's the great thing about most of these. When you do this, you're just going to be putting those with each other. So now it's multiplying to 12x squared and adding to 7x. Okay, so now I'm going to think about what those two things might be. All right, so this isn't too hard. We know that they have to be an x and an x. We know that that has to be the case. Does anybody here have a guess, or could you tell me what are the numbers you can think of that multiply to 12 that add to 7? Does anybody have an idea about that one? Which pair of numbers multiplies to 12 that adds to 7? Which one of these pairs of numbers works here? And you guys will still have access to that factor sheet so you can look at that. But let's think about that here. Which one of those helps us out for 12x squared and 7x? Goes to 12 and adds to 7. Any ideas? 3x and 4x? Stephen, you are absolutely correct. The 3 plus the 4 would give me the 7. The 3 times the 4 would give me the 12. So this would have to be a 3x and a 4x. Very good. Now with those, I'm going to put those in these two corners. Once I know what they are here, they go here and here. So this here is going to be my 3x. And this here is going to be my 4x. Okay. And again, I like it when you guys type, and that's totally fine. I'm just kind of showing you this so we can see where things are going to go. So now I've got to think about how I want to go about factoring this. And when we've done this before, we always start right up here. What are the two things that multiply to give us x to the second power? Do you guys remember what times what equals x to the second power? What do both of these have to be? Who has an idea for me? Anyone? I'm starting to get to the point where I have to tell you because we're losing time a little bit, but does anybody have an idea as to what these would be? X and x is absolutely correct. I'm going to have an x here times an x here in order to make an x squared or an x to the second power. And honestly, that's the way it's always going to be. Whatever these are going to be, they will always have x's. Now, if there's a number, we may have to deal with them, but they will both be x's here. And so now what I have to think about is what am I going to do for this number here? X times what is going to give me 3x. So, and that's okay. I understand you don't want to be the only one doing everything, but it's, we want to keep ourselves moving. I appreciate that. So x times what number equals 3x? In this case, I would say that this one would have to be a 3, because anytime we have something with an x here, we just have to have that number has to come from somewhere and the variable has to come from somewhere. And I love it when these are just x's, because what that generally means is that this is just going to be whatever that number is in front. So if I take that idea, this is just an x. Here I have a 4x, which means that this one right here would have to be 4. And then we check this one here. Yes, inspiration, that's what we need. If I check this one here, that 4 times that 3 is definitely going to give me that 12. So what I have here, I've got my answers. I can tell you here that that x plus 4 is this side. And so that's going to start me off there with an x plus 4. And then this one right here is going to be my x plus 3. And that is going to be this side as an x. Let's get that in there, x plus 3. And that takes us to this factored form from here to here using the box and the x. So I'm going to submit that. And with what we have as less than a minute in class, I am going to ask if you guys have any questions before I stop sharing here, but I am going to stop the recording.